Hi, my name is Victoria Ellis, and I am a trauma therapist working at the Journey in the Process. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about boundary setting. One thing that I often hear from clients is confusion over healthy boundaries, how to know when my boundaries are selfish, and what to do when people don't respect our boundaries. So, I wanted to give some kind of broad sweeping guidelines. This video is not comprehensive, it is also um, while the baseline is still applicable for people who are in abusive situations, abuse dynamics are a little bit more complex and will be covered in another video that is more focused. The three guidelines I like to focus in on when setting a boundary is number one, boundaries are loving to the other person and safe and healthy for me. So a lot of times I see one of two mistakes when people are setting boundaries. The first one is that they become overly harsh, or just because they've been pushed or they've been living with a boundary violation for so long that they've lost the ability to be compassionate or caring or gentle. They can set really harsh or unreasonable or unloving boundaries on the other person just because they're at the end of the rope and they feel like they have to because they've let things slide for so long. So an example of an unloving boundary is saying, is a boundary that has a way bigger consequence than the boundary violation necessitates, or maybe the boundary is uncharitable or excessive. So an example for that might be a dad who is frustrated that his 21-year-old daughter is still living at home and she's not contributing to rent or groceries. And her attitude has been becoming more and more entitled, and he feels taken advantage of. And but he's never talked to her. And then out of nowhere, he comes home one day and says, if you don't start paying me $500 in rent starting tomorrow and covering your grocery bill, you're out of the house. I'm going to put you out of the house on the street. You have until tomorrow to fix this. So that boundary is unloving. So the expectation that his daughter would contribute to rent or his daughter would contribute to groceries now that she's an adult, now that she presumably has a job or is able to get a job, is not an unreasonable expectation. But the timeline, the harshness of the boundary, the way it was phrased is unloving because it doesn't give her a lot of grace. It doesn't give her much space to respond. It doesn't set herself up for success for respecting the boundary. However, number two, boundaries are safe and healthy for me. So if the dad in the scenario chooses not to set down a boundary at all and continues to absorb the cost of his daughter living with them without contributing, and he and his wife begin noticing that they're having a hard time paying their bills, maybe the daughter's attitude is becoming verbally abusive, or the entitlement is leading to feelings of depression, of being taken advantage of disappointment and hurt, and he never brings up that boundary, then that dynamic is now unhealthy and unsafe for him. Now, some people might say, well, isn't he being loving by sacrificing his well-being in order to keep from being mean or cruel or having expectations of his daughter? To which I say no. So part of loving someone is also holding people accountable, expecting the best from them, which means having expectations and being clear with those expectations. So part of loving someone is resisting toxic, unhealthy, or damaging behavior. So it is not loving to allow someone to abuse me. It is not loving to allow someone to hurt my feelings continually. It is not loving to enable somebody to make damaging decisions. Number two, boundaries are clearly stated. So if dad is starting to feel this resentment. He decides to set down a boundary, but he's not going to tell his daughter exactly what he wants. He's just going to start, you know, groaning and complaining about, man, I do everything around here and nobody else contributes. Then he's not setting anyone up for success. He's going to start spreading his resentment to other people. He's not going to receive the results that he's trying to get. His daughter is not going to know the expectations on her, which means that she cannot meet them. Secondly, if he comes and he just says, I'm tired of you living off of us, not contributing, and you need to fix this, but he doesn't tell her the metric of success, he doesn't tell her what he's tired of, then she's not set up for success and she can't comply. Alongside this is when we are putting boundaries, it's very important that we talk about why this boundary was important to us, what it is that we're trying to protect, so the other person can understand both the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. Thirdly, good boundaries have consequences. I'm going to repeat that. Good boundaries have consequences. There are many, many times when somebody says, well, I asked somebody not to do that and they still did it. And I follow up with saying, well, what did you do next? And they said, well, I was just angry. I'm just angry and frustrated. But did you talk to them? Did you enforce it? Did you remove privileges? Well, no, I just don't know what I can do. Well, in that case, the boundary wasn't a boundary. It was a stunt. So a stunt is when we make a big statement about not wanting something or what we will do if somebody crosses a line, but we have no intention of following that up. And what that does is it undermines our credibility, and for abusive individuals, gives leeway for them to manipulate, push, gaslight, and undermine. So whenever we set a boundary, we want to have a reasonable consequence. If the boundary I'm setting is that I don't want to be called names when I'm in an argument with you, my boundary may look like this. Hey, so I want to talk about the fight that we had yesterday. And it really, really hurt my feelings when you started saying that I was an idiot or a moron or that I was stupid. And I've realized that in order for me to feel safe talking about things like this with you, I need to set a hard line about name calling. I recognize that, you know, I certainly had things that I did yesterday that hurt you and I crossed the line. And I absolutely want to talk about those with you and take accountability. But I just want to let you know that from now on, if you start calling me names, I'm going to excuse myself from the conversation for about 30 minutes so we can calm down, and then I'll come back. So this boundary is setting very clear expectations. 1, this is what the boundary is about. I don't want to be called names in a fight. 2, why is this boundary important? It makes it so that I am hurt and I can't communicate with you. 3, what is the consequence if this boundary violation happens? I will remove myself from the communication for 30 minutes. Basically, if you want to talk to me, if you want to have fruitful conversation with me, if you want your voice heard, you have to do so in a way that I can receive it, which means no name calling. So these are, again, the 3 major guidelines for setting a healthy a boundary in a healthy way. The last thing that I want to touch on briefly is, how do I know when a boundary is selfish? So boundaries at their core are about protecting what is important to us. Good, strong boundaries come from what we value, from protecting and saying yes to something we value. So, for example, in the communication boundary, I am saying no to continuing conversation with you so I can say yes to profitable conversation and feeling joy in your presence later. I am saying no to my daughter living at home so I can say yes to a life without resentment and not resenting her. I am saying, I'm saying no to my mother-in-law coming over so I can say yes to enjoying times with my kids. Maybe it's saying no to a friend's request for money in a desperate situation so that I can say yes to to investing in my family or investing in another friend who I feel like has a greater need. Maybe I'm saying no to Christmas gifts, a Christmas gift that my son wants, so I can say yes to him learning contentment in what he has. Maybe I am saying no to helping out with Christmas dinner so I can say yes to long-term health. Knowing what I am protecting and what I am sacrificing for gives my no some strength because I know what I'm saying yes to. If I notice that my yeses are all about um, myself and short-term fulfillment, then there might be a moment to stop and reflect on why something feels important, what it is that I'm truly valuing and trying to protect, and if I align with that value in a long term. I hope this has been helpful as we think about boundary setting. Um, Again, the 3 rules are loving to the other person, healthy and safe for me, clearly communicated, and with enforceable consequences. Thank you very much. I'm Victoria Ellis. If you enjoyed this material, we have other videos and articles like this available on our website, thejourneyintheprocess.com. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.